And good morning. It is Wednesday, Christmas Eve on the Falcons Podcast. We're on YouTube. We want to be on Facebook and X as well. So that's Atlanta Falcons on SI and then Scout Kennedy on X. And once we get everybody in the house here, we will get started. It's been a week. And here we go. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast. It has been a week since we last chatted. And a lot has happened since then, including another win, 2 in a row over the Arizona Cardinals, a couple of Pro Bowl nods, all kinds of stuff. We're going to get into all of that. And then I figured since it was a holiday season for Hanukkah, Christmas, whatever it is you celebrate, it is the holiday season, we would talk about the wish list, the Christmas wish list for the Atlanta Falcons heading into 2026. Setting up the show for us a little bit. I know Austin is in here bright and early, and he says on his Christmas wish list is hire a competent staff. Yeah, that's I think number one on everybody's wish list is, health and happiness. And, happiness might be too much to ask for, but good health would be a good start for the Atlanta Falcons. But, I think you need to see, Michael Penix get healthy. That might be number one on my Christmas wish list is him getting healthy and see what they have from there. Now, we'll get into it a little bit. Just that he's healthy doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be the right guy, and as I've said a zillion times, and I'll repeat over and over, quarterback play is a collective, and I think the collective was not good enough for Michael Penix, so it was tough to see what exactly Michael Penix was going to be this year with Zach Robinson calling plays, being the offensive coordinator. So that's kind of the next change for me. Trenton, he's in here. He's coming in our mobile side. We've got 2 streams set up on YouTube. It comes in on a mobile version, so it's just singular, and we also have the desktop landscape version. With just a single view, it doesn't really matter. It probably looks a little bit better on the landscape when there's 2 of us, but just single, it means I'm kind of right up in your face. But we've got 2 views for you today. If you don't like one, there's the other one still available. So we didn't take anything away, and you can tell which one you're in. The title will have a little mobile phone in it if you're on the mobile side of things. So good to see you, Trenton. He says, Merry Christmas. And sorry I missed, this Sunday was a good win. I love doing the gut reactions. Those are probably our most popular shows. And the Mondays, but I had one of those old man doctor things going on, and it started Sunday. So I went from the last calorie I had for about 40 hours was Saturday evening. And then Sunday, I wasn't really in any condition to do a podcast. And then Monday was the doctor's office. So a little inside baseball there. So all that's good to go. So apologies for not being there, but I'd put that off for a while and got it done. So sorry I missed you. I know you said hello, Trenton, and I appreciate that. John Harrell, good to see you as well. One of our dear members. You can see it shows up on the screen here, but it also shows up in the chat with his little his bird icon as a member. So we certainly appreciate that. Johnny says, good morning. Merry Christmas Eve, everybody. Right back at you, John. Hope you're doing well. Sam, I know you checked in also over the weekend. Hope you're doing well. He says, morning all. One thing I've been pondering, if Raheem stays, but Zach goes, who could we bring in as offensive coordinator? Experienced, successful offensive coordinators are hard to come by, and Sam, they're even harder to come by when your coach's seat is red hot. That's part of the problems. I mean, anybody that's experienced, successful offensive coordinator, you know what you call those guys? Head coaches. So one of the things you might try and do is look and see who is a head coach who is looking to try and get back into things that has gotten fired with an offensive, like Mike McDaniel down in Miami. If he were to be moved on from, like Kevin Stefanski, 2-time coach of the year, if they fire him up in Cleveland, I don't think that's going to happen. But if it does, something like that, that's where you might be able to try and go in that direction. Basically, with the experiences, disgraced former head coaches trying to get back into things. Otherwise, young up-and-comers, you're either trying to give a guy his first job again, or you're going with you're going with a young guy, or you're going with, there's not a lot of good options there is what I'm trying to spit out. Who wants to come in under Raheem Morris as an offensive coordinator next year? when you're not sure about the quarterback situation. And Raheem Morris is on a week-to-week contract. That's the hard part for me is, you know, who's going to come in if you get rid of Zach Robinson? Do you want to keep Zach Robinson? If you don't keep Zach Robinson, who can you bring in that wouldn't have better options? If you've got a really good candidate, he's going to have other options too. So the other side of that is, a disgraced former head coach might be your best option. He's going to have other options too, though, is a thing. Maurice is also a member. Good to see you. He's watching on the phone side of things. He says, Noah Myluck will probably hire Cliff Kingsbury as head coach. Yeah, I've seen his name pop up a little bit of, how bad was he? This was one of those questions. What about Cliff Kingsbury? And then the crowd goes, how bad was he? Gannon hasn't done a whole hell of a lot better. Record statistics, didn't they make the playoffs with him once? Arizona head coach, 5-10, 8-8, 11-6, and then the wheels kind of came off and he went 4-13. So that 11-6 was in 2021. So he had 2 non-losing seasons with the Arizona Cardinals in 2020 and 2021 in his 4 years during the same stretch that the Falcons did not have. 2020 was the last year of Dan Quinn and Raheem Morris. 2021 began the Arthur Smith side of things, and then the wheels kind of came off in 2022. Did Murray get hurt that year? I don't remember all of that. I didn't pay that close attention, but Kingsbury is again one of those disgraced former head coaches who tried to do well again on the offensive side of things, and see where it went from there. Let me see here. Wanted to go hit some of the other things on the wish list. And Larry says, what it do? It's got great Falcons content all the time. Appreciate you, Larry. Antonio Langford says, good morning, Falcons fam. And listen, there's just one of me here, so I'm going to be right back. Give me 5 seconds. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. So one of the early Christmas presents is I got my big black cat. I got him a heated cat bed. And when he gets in it after breakfast, he's literally there for about 8 straight hours. And I put it right here because I would never see him. So naturally, as soon as I go live, he must not like the Falcons content because he got up and went to the door and he's going to start banging on it. So I had to let him out. So sorry about that. Good morning, Antonio. Hope you are doing well. Trenton says on his wish list, the Falcons win a Super Bowl with Raheem and Zach coaching and Penixon the quarterback with Tyler Algier and Kyler Pitts on the roster. Yeah, that sounds like a wish for sure. But Austin says you wanted to get into this. He says, that's a good question. Let's say Raheem stays. Who are some of the up-and-coming quarterback coaches who were part of a tree? Like Zach Robinson. That's what's so frustrating about Zach Robinson. He comes from part of the McVay tree, and then you look at what McVay does, and he doesn't do any of it. When you're the literally complete polar opposites. The Rams are number 1 in the use of play action. The Falcons are 32 in the use of play action. 32 versus 1. It's like, hey, we really like what you do. This is you really did some good things with this company. That they do a good job here. We'd like to be more like them. I see you worked there for a while and went for one of the best mentors in the world. You're hired. Oh, you're not going to do anything like they did? Well, that's dumb. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. But again, Austin, Falcons fans, up and coming, those guys are getting head coaching gigs, or you are hiring a guy who has never been an offensive coordinator. That's young up and coming offensive coordinators are a very hot commodity. And I was pleased when the Falcons got Zach Robinson. I had no idea he would not do the things that Sean McVay and the Rams did. That's insane. I don't understand. I really don't. Oh, Michael Penix can't go under center. Put him under center. Let's find out. Do we know he can't? Have we seen him go under center and just totally flop and fail? And if that's true, which I will never believe it is, then someone else should be fired for drafting him because he doesn't have the competency of a middle school football player. It's bogus. We'll never ever believe that narrative. Jeff Wolf says, he says, I'm disappointed in the consulting firm. Yeah, there was a report on that. I think it came from Albert Breer, maybe, that he's got a consulting firm coming in. Come in and tell everybody what you're doing wrong. Man, I'd like a piece of that money too. So I don't believe anyone is going anywhere. I don't know, man. If you're going in and I think it's not necessarily a bad thing, to say, come in, take a look at everything we're doing, and usually firings follow, right? Office space. What exactly do you do here? So we'll see. They probably pocketed $1 million, easy money for them, and I don't know. Keith LC says, good morning. If we get rid of Raheem and hire a new head coach, can we keep the whole defensive staff? Probably not. And I had this discussion on YouTube. Someone came in and said, I'm a little concerned, what does it mean if we have wholesale changes? Because I like what some of the things that have been on defense. And that's fine. I understand that. Defense, I'm a Ulbrich fan too. I think he's done a pretty good job. But the defense isn't so amazing that it would prohibit you from making wholesale changes. Right now, the defense is actually pretty middle of the pack. They've got some nice sack numbers. But if you look at, and middle of the pack is an improvement, don't get me wrong. We look at defensive EPA per play. The Atlanta Falcons are 16th. So they've gone from one of the worst 3 units in the league to mid. Okay? That's the definition of mid. I hate it when people see something that is just awful and say, oh, they're mid. They're not mid. They're awful. Mid is an improvement. Right now, they're mid. Part of that is personnel. I mean, it's taken the Falcons, how long since 2020 to invest, some young defense in the young players in the draft? And they've hit on a few of those guys, but they're still shorthanded. There's the lack of depth there is astounding. When Divine Diablo gets hurt and you got to put in JD Bertrand, that's bad. The depth in the secondary is really bad as far as when you go from even one of the starters to anybody else in the secondary. It's really bad. We know what the depth is like on the offensive side of the ball, but to be fair, I think there was good depth at quarterback, I think there was good depth at running back. We thought there was good depth at wide receiver. I'm not going to get on Terry for that. Darnell Mooney is had a wasted year, and Ray McLeod was part of a group that didn't like what was going on, and he got cut. That was 1,800 yards of offense, 1,700 yards of offense out of your two receivers that just poof vanished, that you were counting on. So offensive line depth, nobody has great offensive line depth. But the defensive staff, no. You might be able to, but probably not. Probably not if you do that. And John's afraid of this. Is that if I believe if we win 3 of the last 4 games, we'll be stuck with Raheem. And I looked this up because I did the article yesterday, on the power rankings, and the Falcons actually moved up 3 spots on ESPN. They're up to 21 on the power rankings, ahead of the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, if I told you at the beginning of the season, hey, the Falcons and the Chiefs are going to have the same record, you'd probably be pretty excited. Hey, Falcons and Chiefs are going to have the same record, 6-9. That's not necessarily a good thing. So the Falcons right now are 3-2 since Kirk Cousins took over as full-time starter. One of the wins was against the Saints, which all of a sudden looks like a decent win, but they were 2-8, I believe, when they played, and they hadn't taken the next step. They were 2-8. I think Tyler Shuck was just starting. Beating the Saints in 2 weeks would be a bigger accomplishment than it was beating them 4 weeks ago. They're playing better ball now. They beat the Jets, So there's a thing in soccer called a form table. Instead of the entire season, they say, what are the last 5 games? What do those look like? So I went and looked. What's the form table for the teams that the Falcons have played? Because the Falcons are 3-2. That's their form. The Jets are 1-4. Their one win was against the Atlanta Falcons. The Seahawks, no harm in getting beat by the Seahawks. The Seahawks are right now number 1 on top of most power rankings. Now, you looked awful doing it, and you had a lot of the same mistakes on special teams and whatnot, and your lack of receiving core was just awful. And you got blown the F out, showing just how far you are from competing with the elite, despite being 3-2. But the Seahawks are 5-0 in their last 5 games. Beat the Buccaneers. Buccaneers were in first place in the NFC South, right? Well, the Buccaneers are 1-4 in their last 5 games. They're 1-4, and they have circled the drain and are going down the toilet. And it's going to be the Panthers that will probably end up winning this division. And finally, the Cardinals, 0-5. So your last 2 wins, your 2-game winning streak has come against 2 teams that are 1-9. Your one of your losses came against a team that's their only win, is 1-4. So the recency bias is something that I don't want to fall victim to. The fact that the Falcons are 3-2 with Kirk Cousins shouldn't make us overlook the whole of the season. It's sitting at 4-9 and being one of the first 5 teams eliminated from the playoffs. That's awful. They should, if they were just hanging around 500, this was supposed to be the easy part of their schedule. This was a part where they could clinch the NFC South, not get some consolations and have people think, oh, golly gee, maybe they're turning it around. No, they're playing teams at the end of the season that are more interested in losing than winning. So the 3-2 isn't going to fool me on this, and hopefully it won't fool everybody else either on that, John. Michael Baxter, good morning. Glad you could make it. He says, good morning, and everyone on Atlanta Falcons on SI. Well, thank you. That's Garrett. That's our Kesh. Dave Holcomb still chips in every once in a while. Austin says, Robinson has improved with Kirk under center, and realistically, when will Penix theoretically be able to work on footwork? Guys with ACLs, they're up on walking around in a brace within 2-3 weeks. So realistically, I don't know for sure, probably early spring, late winter, February, March, where he can start doing some things, but he'll be riding a bike. He'll be swimming. He'll be doing some stuff. He'll be standing and throwing. You can do that starting, pretty much first of the year, doing some things. And then you can always do, study and work on that type of stuff as well. Pinky, good to see you. He says, Merry Christmas, dirty birdies. Times are hard, but it's the red and black until I die. Thanks for the commentary, Scott. Well, thank you for the support on the show. I always remember the profile pic. I grew up, my room, when you're a teenager, you move into the basement. It's just what you do. So I had a pool table in my room when I was a kid, and I haven't played pool in so long. I was decent. I was pretty good. It's funny. It kind of coincided with me stopped drinking. I wasn't in bars nearly as much and didn't play as much pool. Funny how that happens. Michael Lewitsky got the care package. Island Mike sent me an awesome care package, stuffed full of Puerto Rican treats, some coffee, some Danishes, all kinds of good stuff in there. You're the man, Michael. I certainly appreciate it. And Michael says, I see so many fans that want Kirk back. Such short memories. He asked Blank twice to release him, but he's not coming back. Oh, goodness. I think the last time I've spoken with absolutes about twice in my life where they've come back and bitten me. Normally if I speak with an absolute, it's because I'm 100% sure. Well, it's about 99.9. One of them was A.T. Barnes, was an athlete up at, where is he, at Cartersville High School. I said, there's no way he's going to go to Georgia Tech. He's going to commit to Georgia Tech because he doesn't have the grades. He's not going to qualify. No way. Well, he commits to Georgia Tech. Signs with Georgia Tech. Didn't qualify. He's like their only non-qualifier in 30 years since I've been covering recruiting. The only one. And then I said, there's just no way that you spend $100 million on a quarterback and then draft, use your number 8 overall pick on a quarterback that a month later. Nobody does that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It sets everything up. The locker room's weird. Your resource allocation, you just, bench your first round pick. You're getting no help there. It doesn't happen. It happened. So I've also now said there's no way they keep Kirk Cousins on a $57 million contract, and there's no way that Kirk Cousins takes less money, and there's no way that they want to extend him and keep Kirk Cousins' money on the books for longer. He's already going to be on the books possibly till 2027 on the current contract, depending on if they cut him, if they want to take his full dead cap hit of $35 million in 2026 or spread it across 2 seasons. That means he's on the books for 2026 and 2027. If they do any kind of restructure, he's not going to take less money. Not in Atlanta, not for the things that have gone on here. Now, Arthur Blank's a big fan of Kirk Cousins. That's one of the reasons he's still here. That matters. But Kirk's not going to take less money in a restructure to stick around when they want to replace him. They already did replace him. They still want to replace him. He's not going to restructure for less. So you're going to have to give him more money, extend his contract into 2028, possibly 2029. That would be insanity. That can't happen, can it? I'm afraid to say it won't. It can't. It cannot happen. Does this team look like a playoff team right now? We'll find out. You will find out because on Monday, because the Rams are a playoff team and the Rams want to win. They're not just comfortably cruising into the playoffs. They're fighting for some things right now, and they're coming off a loss. We'll find out. The last time we saw a playoff team, it was the Seahawks. It was fugly. That was the last time the Falcons saw a playoff team, and they got blown out. Goodness. Carl says the Falcons are already stuck with Raheem Morris. Y'all just don't know it yet. We'll see. 7-10 looks possible. I mean, right now, the way the Saints are playing, you split with the Saints every year, don't you? You already beat them, and they're playing pretty good football right now. Didn't they just beat the Panthers too? The Panthers are playing pretty good ball. And the Saints, who the Saints just beat? They beat the pants off the Jets, who beat the Falcons. They beat them by 3 touchdowns. 6-11, come on. There's no way, right? You lose both of them. 7-10, I said, you're gone. 8-9, I said, maybe. I'm not sure on that. They win 8-9, it's possible. I don't see it at 7-10. Should have been fired at 4-9. They just held on. The same thing. Last time we went through this, when Arthur Smith lost to all of those first-time quarterbacks in 2023, either making their first appearance or second appearance or making their first appearance of the season, like Kyler Murray in Arizona. They were coming off Arizona, lost to the Cardinals. Kyler Murray's making his first appearance after an ACL injury. I guess that answers a 2022 question. That's right, because he was about Cliff Kingsbury, because Kyler Murray was hurt because his first appearance after the ACL injury was against the Falcons in 2023. That answers that question. And they lose to them, and they go into the bye. I said then, Arthur Smith was fired right then. They just don't know it. At 4-9, right, Raheem Morris was fired. We just didn't know it. Maybe. We'll see. We will see on that one. Og says Raheem's not the guy, but I don't know if any top candidates want to come to this organization. Og, that doesn't make you that doesn't mean you don't try. Don't stay in a bad relationship for the sake of you might get lucky. And I mean this in all walks of life. You might get lucky on somebody who's not a top candidate. And, if there's 5 openings, you mean to tell me in all of football, let's say there's 50 guys that are untouchable in the world of football, from college to the NFL, 50 guys that are untouchable, 28 NFL guys who already have jobs and 22 top college football guys. And that's a lot. You mean to tell me in the whole world of football, you can't find one person better than Raheem Morris? I disagree. I think you can. Will you? I don't know. But I think you can. And you don't stay in a bad relationship because you're afraid you can't do better. That's toxic. And right now, this team is toxic. It really is. It needs a reboot. It really does. And Cool says they're beating up on weak teams, which they're supposed to do. They are. And what it means for me, Cool Smooth fan, is that I'm not going to let the recency bias sway my view of the whole picture. Okay. Falcons have had some injuries. Yeah. How hurt was Storm Norton? The Storm Norton thing was just weird. He was day to day, comes back out there. Okay, now he's out now we have to put him on IR. Okay, we're opening his window. We're opening his practice window. Now we're going to have to shut him down for the whole season. Caleb McGarry's kind of a fluke, but, Caleb McGarry was a little bit of a concern anyway. You had problems at offensive tackle beforehand. And the quarterback play hasn't been good all year. The injury to Michael Penix didn't tank this team. And the fact that Kirk Cousins has taken over doesn't mean with Kirk Cousins you'd be in the playoffs. So they are beating up on some teams that are more interested in losing. Michael, he says, these wins mean nothing. All the pressure was off the team, which opens up another question. What about Kyle Pitts? I'm now firmly in the franchise tag him type of things. And he looks, I said at the beginning of the season, I believe that Kyle Pitts would have a good season. And then, while the pressure was on, when the team's still battling, he was disappearing. And now that he's the only legit receiver out there, they're spamming targets to him, and he's doing well. He's like 18 of 19 on targets, 19 targets, 18 catches from Cousins the last couple of games. And he's playing with a different swagger, and they're finally using him over the middle, and they're using him in motion. You absolutely have to put a franchise tag on him during this offseason. He won't like it. He'll want a multi-year deal. I'm still hesitant to be the one that signs him to a 4-year, $60 million with $35 million guaranteed contract. I'm still hesitant to do that. The franchise tag would be 15.8. The top 10 guys are averaging like 14.1 right now. So there's not that much difference between the franchise tag and the average of the top 10 tight ends. Whether you think he's a top 5 tight end, because that's how you get the franchise tag, is you average a top 5, or not. Statistically, he is. He's top 2 this year, statistically. If you don't think he is, he's definitely top 10. It's just that there's the tight end position just isn't a big priority around the NFL. So top 10 tight ends is just kind of a guy, but they make $14 million. So franchise tag him at 15.8, and I'm open for business. If the worst thing that happens is I've got Kyle Pitts next year playing on a $15.8 million, okay, let's see how it goes. It's gone pretty good this year. Do it again, and then we'll talk longer contract extension. But instead of trading him in the offseason when his stock was low, his stock's high now. So if I franchise tag him, I can get a good deal. I can absolutely get a much better deal. Should at the very least get a second-round pick in return. So franchise tag Kyle Pitts. But again, it goes back to the pressure's off. Now he shows up with, 6 weeks left in his contract. It's questionable, but those are the decisions you have to make. And you don't have to get them all right, but the Falcons seem to get more wrong than they get right through the course of their history. That's why the records have been what it is. Tony, good to see you. He says, I do not want more back next year. And like I said, I think it's I don't want more back. I think it's a tough sell. I really do. I think it's a hard sell to say, okay, Morris is back with a new offensive coordinator. I think it's a tough sell to the fans. And there's been enough people in here says I'm not renewing my season tickets and that type of stuff. that, Arthur Blank is loyal to a fault, but he's not dumb either. So you can't have Rich McKay in front of a microphone, and it'd be a tough sell for Raheem Morris for sure. Larry says, why are they saying Mahomes could be back in week 1 when he tore an ACL and PCL, but Penix could be out the year? Larry, I've been saying other things, again, it was a new ACL injury with Penix, and with a quarterback, it's not the same as a quick twitch, a corner or a running back, or even a smaller wide receiver. And they're like, people say, oh, it should take a 9-month recovery. Well, that's right. That's about right. 9-month recovery, y'all, is, Larry, the beginning of the season next year. And people hear 9-month recovery and they've lost their minds. 9-month recovery until they are playing again. That's what a 9-month recovery means. People, they immediately get on their little Twix bots and start talking like he's in traction, like he's going to be bedridden for 9 months, and that's when he can start beginning his rehab. No, that's not what it means. 9-month recovery until he's back on the field playing. That's typical for ACLs nowadays. It used to be 18 months. To be fully back to your athletic best, it is about 18 months. But we're not talking a cornerback. We're not talking a wide receiver or a running back. Caleb McGarry is not going to need 18 months to be back to 95% of what he was when he left. It's a different skill set. The question with Penix is, are his knees made of glass? That's why people are more worried about it. They don't think, it's not so much that he won't be recovered. It's like that he's just not gonna recover. And if he does recover, it's not going to matter because he's just going to get hurt again. That's the difference. But they say 9-month recovery. That means you're doing football activities in 4 weeks. They're like, oh, he's going to miss OTAs. He's going to miss spring practices. No, he's not. No, he's not. And if he is, he's completely debilitated and he was damaged goods. I'll listen to that argument. But tearing an ACL for a quarterback's 6 to 9 months before you're able to get back out there again. So there we see. So that's why it's the previous history with Michael Penix, not the injury itself. And the question here becomes, as Michael says, I don't see Michael Penix as our long-term quarterback. He'll get a chance in 2026. He'll get the chance because of the investment. Desmond Ridder didn't get that time because he was a 3rd-round pick, not a 1st-round pick. If Desmond Ridder was a number 8 pick, he wouldn't have gotten benched. He would have gotten the full season, and maybe the part of the next one too. But a number 8 overall pick is going to get more chances than a 3rd-round pick. It's just the way it is. He'll get the chance because the Falcons aren't drafting a quarterback that's going to come in and compete for him. And again, how is Kirk Cousins a quarterback of this team on a 57? The $57 million cap hit next year is the 6th highest cap hit in football next year. Is Kirk Cousins? No, thank you. Cool smooth fan. He says he thinks Morris comes back. We'll see. Let's see. Keith Robbins says, Merry Christmas Eve. Right back at you. And thanks for being a member, Keith. Tony says, can we start over? New head coach, no to Cousins coming back. Idea, sign Stetson Bennett. I see a lot of fans wanting him. Cheap deal until Penix can use extra money for a wide receiver, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, there's a lot of, he's a folk hero, Stetson Bennett, but 6 foot, underarmed, undersized guys aren't usually very successful in this league. He does have another year on his contract, on his rookie deal. So you'd have to send the LA Rams more draft picks. It's not just signing him. You'd have to trade for him. I think there'd be other options. Wait and see what the Rams want to do with him. He'll be a free agent a year. But I don't want to trade for Stetson Bennett on that one. Let's see. Aug says it's going to be Mac Jones or Jimmy G to start 2027. Let's get into this just a little bit. Mac Jones would need to be traded for also. He's got another year left on his deal. Garrett did a on Atlanta Falcons on SI did a And then he did the podcast last night talking about quarterbacks, and he ran through a bunch of them about some of the possibilities. Easton Stick, he'll be a free agent. He just says, assuming Kirk Cousins is gone. Malik Willis is also a free agent. Roswell Guy, who has done some good things when he's had a chance with Green Bay and a competent system around him. Again, quarterback play versus quarterback player. Quarterback play is a collective. Does anybody want to argue that playing quarterback for Green Bay is a better situation than playing quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons the last 2 years? Well, you put a guy in Matt LaFleur and the Green Bay Packers, he's more successful than Zach Wilson or Justin Fields with the New York Jets. Tyrod Taylor, 38, 39 years old, another free agent. Jimmy Garoppolo comes up, Rams guy, come in and run a system in there. Trey Lance was available. Zach Wilson, has bounced around and made some decent money, and then some veteran trade candidates. Mac Jones comes up. Jacoby Brissett has one more year. And then one of the two interesting ones, people want to talk about Tua and Kyler Murray. Someone asked me, who was it that asked me? Derek asked me. We had this conversation yesterday in one of our threads on YouTube. What would you say about Tua? He says, it's off the record. I'm like, dude, there's no such thing as off the record when you hit send on a digital device. No such thing. But what would you think about Tua? I'm like, well, if they were just going to cut him and you're getting him for free, but frankly, I want Tua to retire. I mean, he's put $100 million in his bank account. I want him to retire. I'm worried for his what good is all that money if you end up having serious health problems in your 30s? So I want Tua to retire, but if he's going to insist on playing, sure. If they're going to cut him anyway, and it's only going to take a day 3 pick to get him. But the problem is, y'all, if it's going to be that cheap, Tua would rather go somewhere else than to the Atlanta Falcons. That's the problem you're running into right now with the Atlanta Falcons. There's all these cheap options that you think of. I want to get this guy, I want to get this guy, I want to get this guy. They're going to have options to go other places. And the Falcons aren't a great destination as it currently stands. Not until they make wholesale changes, depending on who they bring in, then people might want to play for that person, or until they win. One of those two things has to happen. Right now, they're coach on the hot seat, 8 straight years of losing. You don't get guys that have options. How many times you say, they just waived this player? Who was there was a defensive back, I think, or those guys end up going to the Bills. The Bills have signed a couple guys like that. They end up going to contending teams when they become available late in the season for whatever reason. Not to the Falcons right here. Share the lights. Yep. It says the Saints beat the Panthers twice. I thought they did. That's when they started kind of getting it right. I think Tyler Shuck is 3-2 also. ECU Falcons says, I feel like the movie Groundhog Day. I know. I've put that in writing a couple times. The holidays are coming up, but to the Falcons fans, it feels more like Groundhog Day with another lost season and more questions and answers coming in. Let's see here. I'm going to scroll down towards the bottom. Yeah, and Michael says, Malik Willis has looked very good in the 4 games he's played for the Packers. Again, that's part of the system being around him. Where was he? Tennessee? I don't remember. I think he was with the Titans. The Titans are a disaster. They're a disaster right now, and they've got to dig out of a hole that was created by their previous administration too. He was bad in there. Who hasn't been bad there? Come on. For sure. Atlanta Falcons pandemic says, Tua, why would that name come across as a possibility? Because there's talks that there's 2 things. The Dolphins are ready to move on from Tua, but he has a $100 million dead cap hit next year. So they might Kirk Cousins him for a year. You're benched. You're the backup. It's going to cost us $100 million to let you go, or you're going to be a $60 million backup. They're ready to move on from him. It was a mistake giving him that much money. and his name's going to be coming up as possible if they shop around, think they can get any money for him at all. That's why his name is going to be making the circles. Again, he'll have some say in that. Just even if there's not a no trade clause, and there might be, I don't know for sure, but just respect from the organization, and he would choose someplace probably else. You might come here, but I think it's more likely. God, I can't imagine a team taking on $100 million dead cap hit. It goes down to like 35 if he's on the team for one more year. But they got to pay him. They got to pay him another like $40 million to do that. So that's one of those things. Well, let's get into, we've talked a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of health, a lot of coaches. Those are all on the Christmas wish list. Let's delve just a little bit deeper on that. Christmas wish list. I want Kyle Pitts to be back, or to get at least a second round pick, and I want him to have another season, another prove it year. And this time, while the Falcons are within a game of 500, I don't want it to start when they're out of the playoffs and they're 4-9. I want to see Kyle Pitts. Did a light come on from him where he's like, "Oh, I am a bad man," because that's how he's playing right now. That's my ball. He's playing with an arrogance out there that I love. I want to see health. I want Michael Penix to get healthy. I want Drake London to stay healthy. Let's stop throwing him into danger and using him like a running back. Let's be smarter with how Drake London gets used. As far as acquisitions go, my Christmas wish list would include, based on what the Falcons have, and they'll have some money to spend this offseason, need 2 wide receivers. I want a free agent and a draftee. 2 cornerbacks. I want a free agent and a draftee. I want a big defensive tackle. The Falcons have got to be able to stop the run. Right now, they can't stop the run without selling out to stop the run. And if they sell out to stop the run, they're vulnerable on the backside of things. I wish for James Pierce Jr. to stay healthy and continue doing what he's done. This week, when the Falcons play the Rams, we're going to hear about this trade. Who does Monday nights? Is that now Herb Street or is that Aikman? I don't even know who does Monday Night Football. They all start to sound the same to me. When they are studying the teams all week and they're around the teams, they will be very complimentary of the Falcons trade for James Pierce Jr. It's the team. It's what they see. It's what's going on right now. By the time April rolls around, every draft analyst is going to have amnesia when the Rams are picking, between 11 and 15. And, what an overpay for the number 26 overall pick. They're just going to lose their minds and be amnesia. I want James Pierce Jr. to become that, to stay that guy, because it wasn't an overpay. It wasn't. You don't know how it's going to work out, but right now it's worked out in the Falcons' favor, making that move. And it could work out for the Rams' favor. There doesn't have to be a singular winner in a trade. You make a trade because this team thinks it's going to make them better, and this team thinks it's going to make them better. They can both be right. There doesn't have to be a loser in a trade on that one. So, and Mad Scientist says, we won the trade hands down. Not necessarily. It's not a competition. The Rams are hoping to improve their team. They can do that. They can do that. They can improve their team. So can the Falcons. It's not necessarily a competition. You're both trying to win the trade. But the Falcons, the trade has been good for them. And we're going to hear a bunch of BS. The game itself should be fine. They'll talk, especially if Pierce gets an early sack and goes up to 9.5. And I would love for him. Wouldn't it be awesome for him to get a couple of sacks, move up to double digits on national TV, Bijan to get 180 scrimmage yards, and I think that's about how short he is. It's like he's about 150 short of William Andrews. I want him to break that record. William Andrews is one of my favorite Falcons of all time. I was, 7 years old watching him play, formative years watching him and how good he was. But we love Bijan. We just love him. And I want him to do it in 16 games. He's going to break the Falcons record. I want him to do it in 16 games. When Kyle Pitts became the second tight end in history to break 1,000 yards receiving as a rookie, he did it in 16 games. He didn't need the 17th. I want Bijan to do that I want Bijan to do it in 16 games too. So he needs about 150. Daly says, do you think the blank hiring firm was for show? No, not necessarily, because they didn't make a big deal out of it. Albert Breer's got some sources with the Falcons. He breaks some Cousins news. So, did the Bobs come in to good luck with your firings, Bob? So we'll see. We'll see on that one. Let me see. Dave Kelly says everything else you said is spot on. I think most of those should play out to some extent, but Algier has been such a solid player for this franchise. Would love to see him a lifelong Falcon. Good continuity is my Christmas wish list. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate you. Tyler's gonna price himself out of the Falcons range. I mean, we mentioned the 2 Pro Bowlers. If we didn't, I'm going to right now. Chris Lindstrom and Bijan Robinson were selected to the Pro Bowl. Good for them. How that affects Bijan Robinson's 5th-year option. He's played on 3 years. Next year is his 4th year. He's got a $7 million cap hit next year. This offseason, you have to do it before they start their 4th year. The Falcons will pick up his 5th-year option. His 5th-year option went from $7 million to $11 million because of the Pro Bowl nod. So while we think, the Pro Bowl doesn't mean anything, it means a lot to these first-round rookie contract guys. And I think it's so stupid how they do 5th-year options because it's a rookie contract. It should be an extension of your rookie contract, not a glorified franchise tag, which is based on position. So I wrote this up yesterday. Zay Flowers has now gone to 2 Pro Bowls. Baltimore Ravens wide receiver. He was selected 22 overall. His rookie contract was only about half of Bijan Robinson's, who was selected number 8 overall, as it should be. I think it was $14 million versus, 28 million. It was close. It was 7 times 4, so it was 28 million versus 14 million, right in that neighborhood. But because it is position based and not draft based on the 5th-year option, Bijan Robinson, even with the Pro Bowl nod as a running back, his salary cap went from 7 to 11 because of the Pro Bowl nod. Otherwise, it would have been 7 if he'd gotten snubbed. So the Falcons pick up an extra $4 million, totally worth it. But Zay Flowers, as a wide receiver, gets paid as being a wide receiver, and he's got 2 Pro Bowls, and his standard 5th-year option would have been 17, but because he's got 2 Pro Bowls, his 5th-year option is now $28 million. Even though it's the same rookie contract, even though he got drafted at number 22, because he's a wide receiver, he gets $28 million and Bijan gets 11. That doesn't make any sense to me. It's an extension. It's a 5th-year option of your rookie contract. It should come off your rookie contract. Tell me I'm wrong. Maybe, but it certainly didn't hurt to be that right on Bijan Robinson, number 8, knowing I didn't have to pay him $28 million on a 5th-year option, and I get him for 11. That's theft, man. That's what a bargain. Rusty, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. He says, Merry Christmas, Scott. My only Christmas list is that meaningless wins the last 2 weeks doesn't save jobs. I can't unsee Carolina, Miami, New York games. Yeah, those were bad. And Carolina's a decent team. If you lose to them in a competitive game, so be it. It was tough, but it wasn't competitive. It's like, you're really disrespecting Carolina. No, I'm disrespecting the Falcons for how they showed up, especially coming into that game with a little bit of momentum after beating the Vikings in an emotional win. Then they show up completely flat and get blown out. Then they play Miami, where we're actually a little surprised that Mike McDaniel wasn't fired going into that game, and got blown out. What was it, 34-3, I believe, at one point? And then the New York Jets, again, their only win in the last 8 weeks, I think the last win they had may have been November 9th, was against the Falcons. And they would rather lose too than win. And again, I'm with you. Recency bias is real. Again, bias is bias. We say this every show, but bias is. We're all biased. Recency bias is a thing. And with fanatics, it's a little stronger than most. Let's step back, look at the entire situation, and know that keeping Marquise Williams is a fireable offense. That could have cost you a playoff spot right there. Your offense went backwards in a big way when your keeping everybody, you're bringing back the same people on offense that you had last year. You had continuity there. There's a word that came up earlier, continuity. You made big investments in your defense, including adding a second first-round pick, and you got worse. You got worse. You were supposed to make the playoffs in 2024, and then again in 2025, and you got worse. You got worse. So, yeah, I'm with you. I made up my mind at 4-9, Rusty. So my mind's not going to be changed by these next two games. So we'll see. Coach Dottie said, Scott, it's been a while, but I'm watching. Well, thank you. Weigh in. Come say hello in the comments. I check them. I've been watching. I'm glad you've been able to. He says, happy holidays to you and Nick and everyone here. To you as well, Coach. Certainly appreciate the support and being a super chatter and what you've been able to do to keep us going. Christmas wish list. I mentioned I want 2 corners, 2 wide receivers, and a big defensive tackle. Those to me are the top 3 needs. Now, well, in health, Michael Penix being healthy. Let's see what we've got. I don't know. I'm not going to wish that he becomes, the next Steve Young. I want to wish for things that could come true, that are a little bit more realistic. I don't like to go too far out on a limb with my wishes. So after the health, then let's look at some investment in the offensive line. Jake Matthews is getting older. Matthew Bergeron is okay. Ryan Newsel is okay. Chris Lindstrom, obviously, he's Chris Lindstrom. He's one of the best linemen in the league. Right tackle needs some help. They need a little bit of depth there. Dwayne Ledford, he might just be a mad scientist on the offensive line, coach, but if he's not, he should be able to name where he wants to go. If this whole thing goes away, and depending on his contract situation and whatnot, I would love for him to stick around. I think Dwayne Ledford has done remarkable work. They've had to put in Kyle Hinton at left guard, who's a third-team left guard, because Eli Wilkinson was second team. Eli Wilkinson is third-team right tackle. He's played the entire season at right tackle. Now, have the Falcons' offensive line been, as good as we've seen it in the past couple of years? No, it hasn't. But they played a game with 2 third-teamers out there, a new center. And they've been, I don't remember ever thinking of all the things we talked about of like, okay, here's where you lost. This is where it went wrong in this game. I really don't remember ever thinking the offensive line lost this game. They lost this game because they couldn't stop pressure. They couldn't run the ball. I think Dwayne Ledford's has done a really great job. Has Eli Wilkinson been at a Pro Bowl? No, he hasn't, but he's been competent. You know how many teams would kill for competency at all 5 positions on their offensive line? It's hard to come by. I think Dwayne Ledford has been amazing, and I think that started when we saw him, the leap the offensive line made from 2021 to 2022 after a full year of working with Ledford. And the guys that have been able to come in and play have been at worst competent, which when you're dealing with some third teamers, I think that's pretty amazing. But I would like to see an investment. Don't lean on that. Oh, well, we don't need to, Ledford's going to coach this guy up. No. Feed him. Now let's give him a little bit of extra here. Can you use a late day 2 pick or, a 4th round pick on an interior lineman and get a little bit better in there? I don't know if this is going to be there where we can get an offensive tackle, but it's a priority too. It's going to be a priority too. You might just gamble on Matthews and McGarry for 1 more year and then have to dive in hard in 2027, assuming you're not having your quarterback again on offensive tackle. But offensive line is definitely on the wish list as well. And for me, good Lord, it's wide receiver. I didn't even know Mooney was on the field until the end. I mean, he had 1 late catch, and up until that point, the wide receivers on the field were Darnell Mooney and David Sills, and they were 1 catch on 2 targets in the 4th quarter in that game against the Cardinals. Against the Cardinals. And again, this isn't to put down the Cardinals. The Cardinals, 1, know who they are right now, and 2, they were dropping like flies out there. That wasn't just the Cardinals. That was a beat up, banged up, hurt, depleted Cardinals team. And the wide receivers aren't involved. So wide receiver is probably the number one for me on the wish list after, good health. Cornerback depth is huge because I did feel like against the Cardinals, and I think that's why we saw more field goal things. And this is one of the things I missed in the gut reaction. They were playing less pressure, less blitzing. They weren't quite as aggressive. What that led to was longer drives, field goal attempts. And they missed a couple of them, but the Cardinals were moving the ball, but then getting stopped, as they approached the red zone. That's because they were less aggressive up front. They're dropping more guys into coverage because they needed more guys into coverage. Now, if I'm better in my back five, I can be more aggressive up front, and I'm getting more turnovers, more sacks. I think they only sacked Brissett twice. And they've given up the fifth most sacks of anybody in the NFL. So the Falcons were less aggressive, played a conservative game plan, knowing that they thought their running game and their offense would win. And it did. It did. They ended up getting the win out of that. They were the better team against the depleted Arizona Cardinals team where they shouldn't have to gamble. I'd like them to be able to be more aggressive without having such a liability on the backside. So corners are huge for me too on that one. So I am just about to get out of here. I'm going to run through the chat on here. Mad Scientist says, all we need is a quarterback coach or somebody dedicated to helping Michael Penix succeed. They've got Zach Robinson. They've got TJ Yates. Both of those guys were quarterbacks. Is it in one of the Zampesis, I think, is on staff as well. They've got plenty of former quarterbacks on staff with Michael Penix. I want a play caller and a play designer that puts him in better positions to succeed. When you're not succeeding and you're an outlier on stuff like use of the pistol formation, runs out of the pistol formation, number 32 in play action, and you're not succeeding and you're the outlier, you're not putting your players in positions to succeed on that one. So, and Halsey says, it can't be that hard to coach Matthews and Lindstrom. No, those guys are good. And those were first round picks. But did you watch the team in 2020 and 2021? And Eli Wilkinson this year, third team guy. I think he's been really good. Matthew Bergeron has started since he's come in and he's been at worst adequate. You switch centers without really much of a problem, so I think he's done really well. And again, you can have 4 Pro Bowlers on the offensive line. And if you've got one Jalen Mayfield on the offensive line, your offensive line is cooked. So it's literally, you're only as good as your weakest link. It only takes one mistake to blow up a play on the offensive line. So I think Ledford has done a really, really good job. Rio, good to see you. Thanks for the support, my friend, coming in with a super chat. He says, my Christmas list, we finished this year 8-9. We create cap space next year to fortify receiver and corner spots. And Michael Penix takes the next steps. I believe he's the guy. Okay. Nothing about the coaching change. You're not really, and again, it doesn't really matter. If we want success, if that happens my wish is for success. I don't care who the coach is. If they get success, I'm happy for them. I understand that. The concern is can we get to success without changing coaches on that one? But finishing 8-9, be a good win over LA for sure. And it could create some big questions about quarterback next year. The questions about Kirk Cousins would certainly come up. Maybe you can trade him. But a $57 million cap hit on Kirk Cousins. Remember, Michael Penix, if he doesn't play for 4 years, that's a good thing because it means we're so good at quarterback, right, Terry? That's what Terry said after getting 2 quarterbacks after the draft last year, 2024. Creating cap space, that would be a Cousins thing. You get $20 million plus, depending on what you decide to do, how long you decide to move on from that. Darnell Mooney, you'll save some money. Who are some of the other guys? I'll just look it up real quick. We don't have to go anywhere, right? Darnell Mooney, I think you get about $8 million back when you move on from him. Jesse Bates is someone that you might be able to move on from. Let me look at I just basically if you want to ever do this on your own, I just look at spot rack and look up and change the Falcons and move it to 2026. And then you just calculate cap hit versus dead cap. And if you've got a big cap hit number versus a smaller dead cap number, that's where you can save money by making moves. You got $22.5 million on Kirk Cousins in the positive. You're still underwater on Jake Matthews next year. So you're financially tied to Matthews for one more season. Lindstrom's not going anywhere, but Jesse Bates, you got $6.5 million plus whatever another team would pick up of his salary. So if you were to make a trade, if you were to trade Jesse Bates and someone picked up $8 to $10 million, you could get back a pick and about $15 million in cap space there. You're underwater on Terrell. It's 7.5 on Mooney. You're even on McGarry. Divine, you could save some money with a little bit of a restructure or an extension. Bijan's is all guaranteed, so his is equal. Ryan Newsel, there's money to be saved there, but I don't think you want to do that. There's $5 million on Charlie Warner. I would love Charlie Warner to be back. I'm not sure if you want him back on $6 million. And if you're not going to use him a ton, then there's no reason for him to be out there and take on that hit. And then there's smaller ones. You run into the rookies here. Kyle Hinton is on you got $3 million on Kyle Hinton, backup guard. He's making some good money. $3 million in savings on Kyle Hinton, believe it or not. Michael Ford, $2 million in savings. He's on the books for next year. He signed a 2-year contract. He'll be cut for salary cap reasons. You want to keep Zach Harrison, Braylon Trice. We'll see if he can make the roster. Storm Norton's on 1.5. Who knows if he's ever coming back. So those are the main ones on there, but they can create some space. And then, frankly, what's Drake's number? You'll probably let Drake play at $16.8 million, and then sign him to a deal that actually lowers it in 2027. Let him play on his 5th-year option, and then have his extension kick in after in year 6. That's what the Falcons did with Lindstrom. That's what the Falcons did with AJ Terrell also on that one. So on that note, let's see here. Walter says, what we need is better starting field position and limit the same for the opponent. Yeah, the Falcons have the worst starting field position in the NFL. They're the worst, and that has to do with your crappy return games. And they're like 22nd in the opponent's average starting field position. So, and that has to do with your coverage units. So it ends up the delta between the best and where the Falcons are is about 9 yards. So every change of possession, they're giving up basically a first down. That's huge. One first down is like field goal range these days. So yes, this comes into better special teams play right here, Walter. Better coverage units and better kickoff return on that one here. Matt Science says, I want a new play caller. Yep, I think that's a good wish right there for sure. Let's see. I think we're just about to call it a day. I am traveling for baseball, not necessarily for Christmas, but for baseball. Today's Wednesday, so programming note. I'm not going to do a gut reaction because I'll be in a hotel room for the Monday Night Football game, and it'll be like close to midnight. I will do my best to do the next morning. That'll be Tuesday morning of the 30th, I believe. That's Tuesday the 30th. Yeah, Tuesday the 30th. I'll let my son, who's 16 now, take my car to his baseball game that starts like at 10 o'clock. I'll do I'll do a recap on Tuesday morning, the 30th. That's next Tuesday, from the hotel if I can. That's kind of the plan right now. Garrett will be here. Probably not Thursday night, so let's not count on that. But right now, that's what I'm planning on doing. The next show is the Monday, is the Tuesday morning after the game. I want to hit that. I will be in Florida, down in Fort Myers for baseball. Want to do on that one. So that's the next time I plan on seeing y'all. Unless you're a member, probably have some member videos before then. And if you're not a member, become a member. I'll drop that in the chat real quick for everybody. Become a member. We haven't lost. The people that have been members have stayed members. So I think they've been pretty happy with it. And I've certainly been happy with y'all and the support. Shout out to our super chat supporters. Pinky, Rusty, hope you're doing well. Coach Dottie, good to see you again in Rio. Love you, Rio. Coming in on Facebook and YouTube all the time. Big supporter of this show. It means a lot. So happy holidays, everybody. That's happy Hanukkah. Merry Christmas. However you may celebrate, do it with your loved ones. I am going to get out of here and call it a day. Probably have some last-minute Christmas shopping I got to do because, why do it early? Appreciate y'all being here. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Merry Christmas, y'all.